Assalamu alaikum, I'm Aisha and you're watching SAMAA News. Here are today's headlines. A new United Nations report has confirmed the active presence of Al-Qaeda and Fitna al-Khawari in Afghanistan, warning that terrorist groups are operating freely under the country's informal authorities. The UN's 46th Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Report says the situation poses a serious threat to regional and global security, signalling a dangerous resurgence of terrorism in the region. Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban regime have agreed to a 48-hour ceasefire, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has confirmed. Officials say the truce was requested by the Afghan Taliban and finalised through mutual consent, following days of heightened tensions along the border. Meanwhile, Pakistan has kept all border crossings with Afghanistan closed to ensure national security after repeated provocations from across the border. The closure aims to curb illegal movement and protect trade convoys as authorities maintain full control along the frontier. The head of Britain's MI5 has expressed frustration over the collapse of a major China spying case that sparked scrutiny of the government's handling of national security. The Crown Prosecution Service recently dropped charges against two British nationals accused of spying for Beijing between 2021 and 2023, a move that MI5 says comes as China continues to pose a daily security threat to the UK. Britain is facing a rising threat from hostile states, including Russia, Iran and China, while the terrorism risk remains huge, according to MI5 Director General Ken McCallum. He says there's been a 35% surge in people under investigation for state-linked activity, warning that these nations are increasingly using the same ugly tactics often employed by terrorist groups like Al-Qaeda and Islamic State. US President Donald Trump says Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has pledged to stop buying oil from Russia. And Trump says he will next try to get China to do the same, as Washington intensifies efforts to cut off Moscow's energy revenues. Trump has recently targeted India for its Russian oil purchases, imposing tariffs on Indian exports to the US to discourage the country's crude buying. Oil prices have risen around 1% after US President Donald Trump said Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has pledged his country would stop buying oil from Russia, a move that could drain supply elsewhere. Brent crude futures have risen 54 cents or 0.87% to $62.45 a barrel. US President Donald Trump has confirmed that he has authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations in Venezuela. Trump says his administration is also considering land-based military action inside the country, as tensions with Caracas intensify following multiple deadly US strikes on Venezuelan boats in the Caribbean in recent weeks. Planning has begun for an international force to go into Gaza to stabilize security in the Palestinian enclave. One of the top requirements of US President Trump's 20-point Gaza plan is formation of a US-backed stabilization force. The United States has agreed to provide up to 200 troops to support the force without being deployed in Gaza itself. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu is expected to survive two no-confidence votes in Parliament after offering to suspend President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform in a bid to win support from the left. Lecornu faces the risk of an even shorter second term until his pension reform concession eased political tensions. Gold smuggling into India has surged ahead of the festive season as prices hit new highs. Officials say the illegal trade is rising again, despite a major drop last year, when the government cut import taxes on gold from 15% to 6% to curb smuggling. India remains the world's second largest buyer of the precious metal. The 91-year-old father of the Air India pilot in the June crash that killed 260 people has petitioned India's Supreme Court for an independent probe, challenging the government's handling of what's been called the world's worst aviation disaster in a decade. The crash occurred shortly after takeoff from Ahmedabad in western India. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says he doesn't believe China wants to be an agent of chaos, despite tensions over rare earth export curbs. He told reporters in Washington that a Chinese official had warned of global chaos if US port fees went ahead, but added that Beijing is unlikely to take that path. China has warned the European Union against setting preconditions for Chinese investments, saying it firmly opposes forced technology transfers and protectionist practices. The EU is considering new rules that could restrict Chinese firms, but China insists trade must remain based on mutual benefit. A new investigation has concluded that OceanGate's Titan submersible imploded during its 2023 expedition to the Titanic wreck due to poor engineering and repeated failures to properly test the vessel. The US National Transportation Safety Board says the design process was inadequate and the sub failed to meet basic strength and durability standards. All 5 people on board, including OceanGate's CEO, were killed in the catastrophic implosion. That's all for now. For more updates, visit www.SAMAA TV. Thank you for watching SAMAA News.